The encrypted message from Kane arrived precisely 30 minutes before deployment. The update was brief but critical. Security rotation delayed by 1 hour. New window at 2300 hours. Adjust accordingly. Ethan Pierce, seasoned commander of the Covert Rescue Unit, scanned the message again, his sharp gaze settling on the tactical map spread before him. Every detail of the mission had been meticulously planned, every movement timed to the second. But intelligence was fluid. One change, one unforeseen variable could shift the entire operation. He exhaled slowly, his mind calculating adjustments. "They're running late," Naomi Vargas, his second-in-command, muttered beside him. "Could be nothing, could be everything." Ethan tapped a finger on the map. "If security's off schedule, we're running a tighter clock than expected. We move now." The command rippled through the team. Within seconds, the operators finalized their gear checks, securing night vision systems, suppressed weapons, and specialized breaching tools. Each movement was precise, deliberate, rehearsed 100 times over. In the dim glow of the hangar, the tension was a living thing, coiled and waiting to spring. 3 unmarked helicopters powered up in silence, blades slicing through the night air. As Ethan climbed aboard the lead aircraft, Shadow, his trusted Belgian Malinois, settled at his feet, eyes alert. As the choppers lifted off, the mission had begun. No turning back, no second chances. Their target, a heavily guarded compound deep in cartel territory. Their objective, extract the children before they disappeared forever. The stakes were absolute. Failure was not an option. The helicopters skimmed just above the rugged terrain, hugging the contours of the land to stay below enemy radar. Inside the lead aircraft, Ethan Pierce kept his eyes on the mission clock. Every second counted. They had only one chance to get in and out before the enemy knew what was happening. After 50 minutes of silent flight, the pilot's voice crackled in his earpiece. "LZ in sight. No visible movement. You're clear to drop." Ethan gave a curt nod. "Go." The aircraft descended into a remote valley, the rotors kicking up dust as the team disembarked swiftly, weapons at the ready. Shadow landed beside Ethan, ears perked, scanning their surroundings. The night was thick with silence, broken only by the distant hum of insects and the soft rustle of wind through dry brush. They moved quickly, navigating the rugged terrain in tight formation. Shadow took point, his keen nose trained for danger. Every member of the team knew their role. No wasted movement, no unnecessary noise. 2 kilometers from the compound, Shadow froze. His body tensed, his tail stiff. Ethan immediately dropped to a knee, raising his fist in a silent signal. The team halted instantly. Through his night vision scope, Ethan scanned the landscape ahead. A 2-man patrol crept along a ridgeline, sweeping the ground below with flashlights. This wasn't in their intelligence briefing. Naomi's voice whispered through his earpiece. Unscheduled patrol, possible heightened security, could mean they're preparing for something. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Or it means we're already too late. The patrol moved slowly, methodically, their beams of light cutting through the darkness. Any sudden movement, any misplaced footstep, and the entire operation could be compromised. The team remained frozen, barely breathing, as the guards passed less than 20 yards away. The moment stretched, the weight of it pressing down on them. Finally, the men disappeared beyond the ridge, their flashlights flickering out of sight. Ethan exhaled, then keyed his comms. "Clear. We keep moving. Extra caution." The mission had just become more complicated. Whatever was happening inside that compound, they were running out of time to stop it. The team reached the perimeter of the compound, crouched low against the rough terrain. The faint glow of distant floodlights flickered through the trees, illuminating the walls of the facility. Ethan signaled for a final equipment check. Magazines secured. Suppressors locked. Night vision calibrated. There would be no second chances. Shadow, his Belgian Malinois, moved with silent precision beside him, his ears twitching as he scanned for movement. Every breath felt measured, every heartbeat controlled. Ethan raised 2 fingers, then pointed toward the eastern section of the compound, where their intelligence indicated the children were held. Naomi and Axel took position at the rear entrance, while Ethan and Shadow advanced toward the main doorway. A lone sentry stood outside, his rifle slung loosely over his shoulder, eyes flickering with boredom in the dim security light. He never saw Ethan coming. A swift, practiced movement, a firm grip, a sharp twist, and the guard crumpled to the ground unconscious, eased down without a sound. "East entrance secure," Ethan murmured into his comms. Naomi's voice crackled back. "Copy. Breaching now." Ethan retrieved his electronic lockpick, attaching it to the keypad beside the main door. The tiny device worked fast, bypassing the old system in under 5 seconds. With a faint click, the lock disengaged. He eased the door open, stepping into the darkness beyond. The air inside was stale, thick with the scent of old concrete and damp cloth. Shadow moved ahead, his body language shifting instantly, ears forward, tail low. He had detected something. Ethan's grip on his weapon tightened. They weren't alone. He gestured for Axel to take the rear while Naomi and William secured the corridor. The team moved in controlled, fluid motions, checking each doorway as they advanced. The compound was eerily quiet. No additional guards. No signs of resistance. It felt wrong. At the end of the hallway, a reinforced door loomed before them. Shadow let out a silent alert. Inside, there were people. Ethan tried the handle. Locked. Too easy. His gut screamed a warning. Something wasn't right. Still, there was no time for hesitation. He removed a small tool from his pack, expertly disengaging the deadbolt. As the door creaked open, 16 sets of frightened eyes looked up at him from the dimly lit room. Before he could say a word, a girl, no older than 12, spoke, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "They told us you would come." Ethan's breath hitched at the girl's words. "They told us you would come." That wasn't right. No one should have known they were coming. His mind raced, analyzing every possibility, but there was no time to dwell on it now. "We're here to get you out," he said firmly, keeping his voice low and steady. "Stay quiet, stay close, and do exactly as we say." The 16 children, their eyes filled with both fear and fragile hope, nodded. Naomi and Axel moved quickly, guiding them into pairs, older ones taking the hands of the younger, forming small, manageable units for the extraction. Ethan glanced at his watch. 4 minutes since breach. They needed to move. Shadow took point, leading them back through the dim corridor. Each step felt agonizingly slow, each shadow a potential threat. Then Naomi's voice came through the comms, tense and clipped. "We have a problem. Multiple vehicles inbound. 5, maybe 6 coming in fast." Ethan's stomach twisted. They had been compromised. "We're out of time," he muttered, signaling the team to pick up the pace. They reached the side exit just as the first headlights cut through the darkness beyond the compound. Dust billowed in the air, silhouetting approaching figures. Axel, positioned near the rear, cursed. "They're moving to block the main route." Ethan didn't hesitate. "Flashbangs, smoke, give us a window." Naomi was already moving, planting distraction devices along the perimeter. Within seconds, the night erupted, blinding flashes, thick plumes of smoke curling into the air, chaos engulfing the compound. The children flinched at the sudden explosion of sound and light, but Ethan kept his voice firm. "Eyes on me. Keep moving." He grabbed the youngest child, a boy who couldn't be older than 6, and carried him as he led the group into the darkness beyond the fence line. Shots rang out, distant but too close for comfort. Martinez's voice came through the earpiece. "Extraction team, move! LZ is 3 minutes out. You don't have time to stop." Shadow stayed glued to Ethan's side, occasionally glancing back at the compound. The dog could sense the tension, the urgency. By the time they reached the extraction zone, the helicopters were already waiting, blades kicking up wind and dust. The team wasted no time loading the children inside. Ethan did a final count, 16, all safe. As the aircraft lifted off, leaving chaos behind, he exhaled, glancing at the frightened but safe faces around him. They had made it, but this was far from over. The helicopter surged forward, cutting through the night as the compound below shrank into the distance. Ethan remained alert, scanning the terrain through the open hatch. His earpiece crackled with Martinez's voice. "All teams accounted for. No casualties." 16 children huddled together in the dimly lit cabin, their faces pale, eyes darting anxiously between the operators. They had been yanked from captivity, thrown into the chaos of a high-stakes extraction, and now sat gripping the straps of their seats as the aircraft swayed in the turbulence. Some whispered to each other in hushed voices. Others simply stared, silent and unmoving. Ethan turned to Naomi, who was tending to a young girl no older than 10, wrapping a thermal blanket around her thin shoulders. Shadow lay at the girl's feet, his presence steady, reassuring. "She's in shock," Naomi murmured, brushing damp hair from the girl's forehead. "They all are." Ethan knelt, careful to make himself as unthreatening as possible. He met the child's wide, fearful gaze. "You're safe now," he said in Spanish, his voice calm, steady. "No more cages, no more darkness." The girl didn't speak, but slowly, almost hesitantly, she reached out and placed a trembling hand on Shadow's back. The dog didn't move, allowing the touch, his presence a grounding force in the storm of fear and uncertainty. A few seats away, the 12-year-old girl who had first spoken inside the compound sat with her arms wrapped around a younger boy, holding him close. She caught Ethan's gaze. "My brother," she said suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. "They took him somewhere else." Ethan felt the weight of her words settle in his chest. One rescue. But how many were still out there? How many more waiting in darkness, their fate hanging in the balance? Naomi's voice broke through his thoughts. ETA to border, 10 minutes. Ethan straightened, his mind shifting back to the present. Copy. Stay sharp. We don't take anything for granted until we're over the line. The helicopters maintained formation, speeding toward safety. Below, cartel forces were likely discovering the empty compound, their fury palpable even from this distance. But the team had done what they came for. The children were safe. For tonight, at least, they had won. 6 months had passed since that night. The desert sun cast long shadows over the valley as Ethan stood on the observation deck, surveying the compound below. What had once been an abandoned stretch of land was now a fully operational training facility, Second Chance, built for one purpose: to prepare the next generation of rescue teams to fight the battle against human trafficking. In the training yard, Naomi was working with Shadow, running him through an advanced search drill. The Belgian Malinois moved with calculated precision, sweeping through the simulated urban terrain, his nose tracking invisible scents that only he could detect. With a swift turn, he halted, head snapping toward a concealed target. In an instant, he gave his trained alert, earning Naomi's approving nod. Ethan folded his arms, the sight stirring something deep inside him. This wasn't just a place to train. It was a promise, a commitment that their work would continue, that no child would be abandoned to the darkness without a fight. A familiar voice broke through his thoughts. 6 months ago, this was just an idea, Colonel James Westfield remarked as he approached. Now it's the most advanced canine rescue training facility in the hemisphere. Ethan didn't respond right away, his eyes still fixed on the yard below. He had spent years on the front lines, chasing shadows, taking lives when necessary. But this was something different. This was building a future. Westfield continued. The Congressional Oversight Committee arrives tomorrow. They'll want numbers, results, justification for the funding. Ethan let out a quiet breath. Naomi handles the bureaucrats. I handle the operations, Westfield smirked. Still keeping your distance from the politics, huh? It works. Below, Naomi finished Shadow's drill and turned toward them, the dog trotting faithfully at her side. Even after months of operations and training, Shadow was as sharp as ever. His eyes met Ethan's, full of understanding, full of purpose. Then, from the command center, a voice crackled over the radio. We have new intelligence. Potential trafficking site in Chihuahua. Up to 20 children. Ethan and Naomi exchanged a glance. The work was far from over. Let's get to work, Ethan said. The war against human trafficking didn't end with one successful mission. It never did. Ethan stood in the operations center, eyes locked on the illuminated map before him. The intelligence report had just come in. A suspected holding facility deep in the mountains of Chihuahua, housing at least 20 children. Surveillance drones had captured disturbing images, makeshift barracks, armed guards, supply trucks being loaded. They were getting ready to move. Naomi stepped beside him, arms crossed. We've got a 24-hour window before they disappear off the grid. Ethan exhaled slowly, absorbing the weight of her words. They couldn't afford to wait. He turned toward the assembled team, seasoned operators and handlers who had spent months training for this moment. Their canine partners sat alert at their sides, sensing the shift in the room's energy. We deploy at 2200. LZ is 3 clicks from the compound. Martinez leads the second element. Williams coordinates extraction. Shadow runs point with me. A murmur of confirmation passed through the unit as everyone moved to finalize their gear. Westfield, standing near the doorway, watched the preparations with a critical eye. The Oversight Committee isn't going to like this, he warned. Mexican elections are 2 weeks away. Any cross-border operation right now is not optional. Ethan cut in, his voice edged with finality. The children don't have the luxury of waiting for a politically convenient moment. Westfield studied him for a long second before nodding. Just make it clean. As the team moved to the armory, Naomi turned to Ethan, lowering her voice. You sure about this? We're going in hot. We may not get another extraction this smooth. Ethan glanced down at Shadow, whose steady presence reminded him of everything that mattered. He didn't hesitate. I'm sure. At precisely 2:45 hours, 3 modified Black Hawk helicopters lifted off from the Second Chance facility, slicing through the desert sky. Inside the lead aircraft, Ethan checked his gear one last time. Across from him, Naomi adjusted her comms, while Martinez whispered final words to his Malinois partner, Rex. The mission was set. As the mountains of Chihuahua loomed on the horizon, Ethan's grip tightened around his rifle. This wasn't just another operation. It was a promise. No child would be left behind, not while they still had the strength to fight. In the chaos of conflict and the darkness of human cruelty, it was not just men and women who stood on the front lines. It was also the unwavering loyalty of those with 4 legs and keen instincts. Shadow was more than a partner. He was a lifeline, a protector, a silent guardian who moved through danger without hesitation. This story is not just about the fight against injustice. It is about the unbreakable bond between humans and animals, the trust that transcends words. In Shadow's dedication, we see the purest form of courage, of selflessness. His instincts saved lives, not because he was commanded to, but because it was his purpose. But not all animals have a mission, and not all find the love they deserve. Across the world, countless animals are abandoned, neglected, and forgotten. Like the children rescued from captivity, they too wait for a second chance. If this story has shown anything, it is that every life, human or animal, is worth fighting for. Protect them, care for them, because sometimes the ones we save end up saving us in return.